Oh, there.
We're live. Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much. Sorry about a quick delay there. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square, and I'm so pleased to have Congressman Ro Khanna joining us today. He is a Democrat who represents the 17th district in California, in the Silicon Valley area, and he also serves on the House Armed Services Committee as ranking member of the Subcommittee on Cyber, Innovative Technologies, and Information Systems. You probably also know him from co sponsoring the bipartisan Epstein Files Transparency Act, along with Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky. And that aims to force the Department of Justice to release all unclassified records related to Jeffrey Epstein. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks for having me.
Well, you were saying that you're in Washington, but a lot of your friends across the aisle are not there right now during the midst of the government shutdown. Um, and I know that you have talked about that the real reason behind this government shutdown happens to be, in your opinion, that House Speaker Mike Johnson is not very eager to have a vote on your Epstein discharge petition. Can we start there?
Well, Susan, you're absolutely right. Look, there are two things going on. There's the broader issue, which is that the Democrats want to make sure that the tax credits get extended for the Affordable Care Act. And if that doesn't happen by November 1st, a lot of people are going to see their premiums go up 50%, 60%, even in some cases double. And that's a traditional fight. The Republicans saying, look, we don't want to fund healthcare. We want to do the tax breaks for the billionaires. We don't want to fund social programs. That's a fight that we're used to. But usually when there is a impasse like this and the Congress shuts down, both chambers are in session. It is unprecedented that the House would go in recess and shut down its business during a government shutdown. We would be voting to pay the troops. We'd be voting to pay federal workers. I mean, this is real stakes. There are people almost in tears because they may not get paid come November 1st. And the only reason that Mike Johnson has shut down the Congress and not having votes to pay our troops or pay federal workers is he knows the day he opens Congress, Adelina Grijalva gets sworn in, and 7 days after that, there's a vote on the release of the Epstein files, and that 50 or 60 Republicans would join Thomas Massie and me, and it would be an overwhelming rebuke of Donald Trump. It would be the first day that Donald Trump becomes a lame duck president, and that's what they really fear.
And so, you've been doing the whip count. So, if the new Congresswoman Gravalia is sworn in, is that your 218th vote?
She's the 218th vote. I know this. Mike Johnson knows this. Thomas Massie knows this. Donald Trump knows this. And this is what the entire game is. And as they delay, they're hoping they can put pressure on one of the Republicans, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or Lauren Boebert, to withdraw their name and deprive us of the 218 votes.
Well, interesting that you bring up Marjorie Taylor Greene because I know that she has been very critical of the situation with healthcare tax credits expiring. And you said that you agree with her on this issue. How does it feel to be working across the aisle with one of the OG Trump supporters out there who, now has become a really good ally on both the transparency for the Epstein files, but also looking at the healthcare issue as well.
I think we as Democrats need to do more of that. There are a lot of people who voted for President Obama and then they voted for Donald Trump. And some of them are disillusioned by Trump. They thought that Trump was going to help bring good paying jobs there. They thought Trump was going to lower prices. They thought Trump was going to take on the corruption in Washington and release the Epstein files. And my view, and different Democrats have different views on it, my view is that the way to win them back is not to insult them. It's to listen to them, to acknowledge their anger and frustration, and then to say, let's the Democrats have a different way that could actually solve your problems. That single payer health care actually would get rid of the private insurance that's ripping you off. That we're actually the party that's going to release the Epstein files. That we're the party against these overseas wars and investing here at home. So I partnered with Marjorie Taylor Greene, with Thomas Massie, with Don Bacon. And I think that we need to win over the persuadable folks who voted for Trump.
Right, and I know you've in particular been, critical of Trump's tariffs on coffee, for instance, and I know that there is obviously bipartisan concern because, tariffs don't just hit blue states or, Biden-Harris voters, they hit everybody. Do you think that do you think that there is a growing possibility of working across the aisle on the tariffs issue, on economic issues, since we're starting to see some real concerning signs for the economy?
I do. Let's especially people in Nebraska and Iowa. The Democrats should be putting full focus on Iowa, a state that, of course, President Obama carried twice. Their economy is shattered. I mean, and that is because of the tariff war. It is because their farmers have been devastated. And the outrage that we're giving $40 billion to Argentina while our farmers are getting hurt. And then we're going to support Argentina selling to China as opposed to our farmers. So there are many members of Congress and in the Midwest, people like Don Bacon, who know that this is really hurting them. And I am confident we can build broad coalitions to take on the irrational tariffs. I'm actually working with a senator. I won't mention the name until they're fine to say let's repeal all the food tariffs because it makes no sense to have a tariff on food.
And now we're facing a situation with this government shutdown that come November 1st, the USDA has been threatening to yank food stamps, SNAP, from about 40 million people. Is this a necessary action with the government shutdown, or is this a willful act by the administration?
It's a willful act. One, the administration could find the money to extend food stamps. I mean, they found the money to pay our troops, which they should have. But again, this all comes down to the fact that the House of Representatives is not in session. If we were in session, as is typical when these shutdowns happen, we would say, let's vote to extend the food assistance and SNAP. Let's vote to pay the air traffic controllers who are coming in. Let's vote to pay our troops. I'm concerned that in the airports, of what's going on that I mean, God forbid there's some kind of safety issue. Some of the reports that go from pilots and flight attendants to the FAA, they aren't being examined, and they are reports that help provide the details of what needs to improve. So we are in this situation because the House of Representatives is not open and we have not been able to pay essential things that we typically do during a shutdown.
What needs to happen to end this government shutdown?
Again, Mike Johnson needs to open Congress. That's a start. We need to all be in Washington. You can't just have the Democrats in Washington, the Republicans away from Washington. I don't understand how it is that the Congress can still get paid, not show up for work, and not pay those who are showing up to work. And I think that those who are listening should just talk about opening up the Congress and telling the facts that it's closed because they're protecting the rich and powerful men in these Epstein files, and they don't want to go against Donald Trump. And they're very fearful that 50 to 60 Republicans are going to join Thomas Massie and me when there's a vote on the floor.
Well, let's go back to the Epstein files. So, how did you and Thomas Massie form this bipartisan alliance on this? How did that come together?
Thomas Massie and I have worked together on a number of issues, largely on matters of war and peace. We're both constitutionalists. We both criticize the presidents of both parties for getting us into overseas wars without coming to Congress. We did a war powers resolution that stopped our refueling Saudi Arabia that was bombing Yemen. We have partnered on saying that the United States shouldn't be just striking down boats, Houthi boats, without coming to Congress. And we had done a resolution just before the Epstein that we shouldn't be getting into a war with Iran without coming to Congress. And so we had just worked on this. Massey saw that I had tweeted out and was introducing something calling for the release of the Epstein files. He said, why don't we work together on this? And we never thought it would capture the attention of Congress and the country in the way it has. but it's a story of rich and powerful people in this country getting away with the most horrific crimes, while an ordinary person says, I can't get away with a parking ticket. I can't get away, running a red light. I get a ticket. How do we have a country of two different tiers of justice?
And Thomas Massie, of course, is extremely conservative. He's not known as a moderate member of Congress. So, what kind of message do you feel that that sends that, you have Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, very conservative members that are uniting with Democrats for this fight for transparency?
I think it sends one message that standing with survivors of rape and sexual assault is not partisan. Protecting America's children is not partisan. And that the anger against a government system that has screwed over a lot of Americans, that has protected a rich and powerful elite, is across the nation. 70% of Americans don't believe in the American dream, and that the traditional political alliances are no longer uh, operational. The this idea of like the Mitt Romney Republican who just thinks let's tinker with things and everything is fine. That's out of date. Like people have been shafted on the American dream. And our party is either going to become a progressive populist party that recognizes that we need massive change to restore the American dream, or we're going to keep losing if we become the party of the status quo. And I think the American politicians are going to appeal on the right or the left are those who are going to be change agents. We're going to say the establishment has harmed this country, that we need a new generation, throw the old guard out. And that's sort of what Massey and I are appealing to.
For the longest time, the loudest voices to release the Epstein files were coming from Republicans. That was and from President Trump himself. Now that President Trump is in power and he has the ability to do that, suddenly the tune has changed. So, what in your estimation is going on?
Well, I think he's gotten there. He said, "I'm president. I don't need to fulfill what I said on the campaign trail." And in many cases, he's gotten away with it. I mean, he said he was going to lower prices day one. He hasn't. He said he was going to end the war in Ukraine day one. He hasn't. And the base has forgiven him. And so I think he said, okay, just put something out and my base will forgive me. And he's shocked that the base hasn't moved on this because this was foundational. It was foundational to the story they told that somehow pedophiles were running the government and getting favorable treatment. And now his not releasing these files is breaking trust. And why is he not doing it? I mean, who knows what's in those files, but my sense is there's probably something embarrassing either to his supporters, his friends, Mar-a-Lago, that he just doesn't want to have out there. And he's stubborn and willing to devise base on it.
You've worked very closely with survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, and they have long been advocating for justice and for transparency. Can you tell us what you expect we will discover if these files are finally unsealed?
Well, I appreciate you mentioning the survivors because they're the real heroes in this story. They have been fighting for justice and a voice for over 15 years. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein first was sentenced to less than a year in prison. And there are almost 1,000 victims, people who were in junior high, raped, abused, told to recruit other junior high and high school students. I've spent time with them. They've been in tears. It's traumatic. Some of them don't remember what happened to them, and they want these files released to be able to reconstruct their own memories. I just think that we owe it to these women to get these files out, and I do think when these files come out, we will see rich and powerful people who abused young girls or who covered up for Epstein. And the first casualties, political casualties, were the British ambassador who actually architected Tony Blair's victory. So it's not political. I said if the Democrats are implicated, they need to face justice. If they're Republicans, they need to face justice. This is about doing right by the survivors.
And Mike Johnson has said, "I won't stand in the way. I will hold the vote." But you've been advocating for this for so many months, and Congress is not even in session. Can we take Mike Johnson at his word on this?
Well, look, I think we've come a long way for him to make that statement, and that's not because of Massie and me. That's because of all of the survivors, first and foremost, and all of the people who are listening. I mean, the more the American public says we're not going to move on, the more Mike Johnson is forced to make the kind of statements he had. So the way to ensure that he lives up to that is to continue the pressure. Their strategy has been, well, we're going to adjourn Congress early in the summer. People will forget.
Mhm.
Well, they did forget a bit, and then the survivors came to the Capitol and had this emotional press conference. And then now their strategy is, well, let's just shut this down and people will forget. And people aren't forgetting. So as long as we stand up and speak out, he will hold to it.
You have said that you think that a message against government corruption, what the Trump administration is doing, is the strongest message the Democrats have in 2026. Last week, of course, we saw the destruction of the East Wing for Trump's ballroom and all the controversy about him possibly getting reimbursed for that. Talk to us about simply what is the message to voters, and do you think this is something they're paying attention to?
Well, I think the broader message is the economic pessimism. The fact is that he hasn't brought down prices, he hasn't created jobs, and the Democrats are the party that is going to bring down food prices. That we are going to create good paying jobs in communities that haven't had them for young people who are having a hard time finding them. But the corruption is central. And look, I don't like how he went about building the ballroom, but there is a far bigger corruption that's staring us in the face, and that is that there's a foreign billionaire who basically got a pardon called Zhao, and he's in cryptocurrency, and he's been steering funds to Hamas and Iran. He was convicted for and served 4 months in prison, and he basically said he wanted a pardon and pay to play, and has provided millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars of support to Trump's family for the World Liberty crypto coin that they have.
Right.
You basically have corruption out in the open. They're not even hiding it. I mean, I'm for banning stock trading and lobbyists, but this is 100 times on the scale where you have a president of the United States basically selling off pardons to someone who's enriching his family in cryptocurrency by millions. I have a bill today where I said, let's ban any cryptocurrency trading by the president, his family, or members of Congress. But we need to talk about this just blatant corruption. And sometimes I think we get sidetracked. I mean, I didn't like the idea of the West Wing the East Wing being demolished, but there is actually just rank corruption going on. I think that's what we need to focus on.
Congressman, I appreciate you taking so much time for us. I know you're very busy because you are working in Washington, but thank you, and I hope you will come back and update us
Well,
on
thank you
your
for your
fight.
work. You're doing great work, and Susan and I appreciate what you're doing to keep the American public informed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.